Hey, you're listening to Horns Up. I'm Animesh.
And I'm Peter. And yes, it's another celebration episode. This time we're going back to 1987 for we've picked an album that's turned 35 years old this year. Now, it's a metal classic and something that Animesh and I've been talking for a long, long time. The one and only Abigail by King Diamond.
Yes, and since it's King Diamond and Abigail, we've roped in not just a friend of the pod, but someone whose life changed for the better because of this album. He's a wrestling journalist, the mastermind behind heavy metal band Albatross, and has been part of Primitive, Workshop, and the Old Monks. Riju, welcome back to Horns Up.
It's such an honor to be back on. And a disclaimer before we start. Unfortunately, you mentioned the wrestling journalism part of my job. I haven't had a chance to listen to this album over the past year, but I'm assuming that because I've heard it some more than 1,000 times, I'll be competent enough to speak about it.
Dude, of course. I mean, this is an album that's changed your life, right?
Right. Absolutely.
What's the story? Tell us the story. I know, like, you people can Google it and find the articles, etc., that you penned yourself about it, but we'd love to hear it from you.
The long-winded story or the shorter?
The long-winded story.
Yeah. Okay. So I think around 2000 or maybe a little earlier, there used to be a site called metalrules.com. And this was the time I had developed my the kind of metal I like. I realized that while I like bands like Metallica and Slayer, I preferred bands like Rainbow and Iron Maiden and that ilk of bands, right? So I log into Metal Rules, and there are three different categories. There is one category that says best heavy metal bands, and that is full of bands that I've heard, like Metallica, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, and all of that. And I was like, oh, these are brilliant bands. And then there is this other list for glam bands. So that has Cinderella, Rat, Poison, and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, I will check out these bands. And the third list was extreme metal bands. So the first album on that list was Melissa by Merciful Fate. So I'm like, okay, these guys sound interesting. Let me check out what black metal sounds like. Until then, I had not heard black metal. I go to, at this point, I know you have an international audience, but there was a music store called Planet M in VP, which is like the central hub of Bombay. I go in there. I could not find Melissa or Don't Break the Oath, the two Merciful Fate albums that were mentioned on the list. But the one album which I found was called In the Shadows, which today, till date, remains like my favorite Merciful Fate album.
Interesting.
I heard it.
Okay.
I thought it was great, but I thought it was in the same kind of genre as Iron Maiden and everybody else. And then I logged into the Metal Rules forum, and everybody's like, if you like Merciful Fate, you should check out King Diamond also. This did not happen for years and years because, I mean, you guys are as old as I am. I think Peter is ancient, maybe older than I am.
Thanks, Riju.
But music wasn't as available back then as it is right now.
Yep.
So I explored music. I found a lot more albums. And then one day I started working around that Planet M. I was subconsciously drawn to that place so that I could like browse for music after work. And one day I just found Abigail there. I love the song titles. And I not only that, I had read about the album. And I heard it was a concept album. I had heard other concept albums which were great, but they didn't do much for me, right? Like even a Dark Side of the Moon, great album, but the story is secondary to the music.
I agree.
Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. Amazing album. Again, the story is secondary to the music. So I bring this one back home, and I know there are certain points in my life where I just began to think differently. Like when I saw Seinfeld for the first time, I thought, oh, there is comedy and there is comedy like this. So the musical equivalent for that was with King Diamond and Abigail. There is every other kind of music, and there is this kind of music which is actually like, a pulp book, which you are like flipping through the pages and you're going from one story to the next story to the next story, where the music serves the story. And it just became, until then, I was in bands before that, but the
Mm-hmm.
whole idea for like Albatross and the kind of music that I personally wanted to make was born from that moment. And I've said this to at least 3 or 4 King Diamond members, and they've all said, "Creepy, dude."
Well, I think now's the time to also drop which member you managed to get to do work on some of Albatross's stuff, right?
Oh yeah. So ever since Facebook happened, I mean, for me, for me, the entire point of Facebook was like stalking and talking to Merciful Fate and King Diamond members. And I mean, they joke about this among themselves. I mean, in the early days, I used to shoot like 50 questions to them about every aspect of their album and everything else. But yeah, when I found out that Andy LaRocque is, the like available to master albums, uh, like the late Rajarshi Bhattacharya and we, like both of us, he is a huge fan of the band Death. I am a King Diamond fan, and we were like, okay, if this guy is available to master albums, we didn't even know what mastering meant at that time. We were
Mm-hmm.
just like, okay, how much is he charging? Okay. What are our lifetime savings? Okay. I think if we put it together, maybe we can make something happen.
I still remember the day, like it was at an ad industry event, and Bipro was there, and Bipro, and like we were the only two metalheads, I'm guessing, at that event. So naturally we struck up a conversation, and he was like, by the way, do you know who's mastering? Very sheepishly, right? Like he wants to talk about it, but he also doesn't want it to become really huge news or whatever. Maybe he does, I don't know. But I remember him confiding in me that you guys managed to get Andy LaRocque to master.
Didn't
And
assume.
I flipped out. I was like, holy shit, you guys are doing that. That's so amazing. And how is he like and everything of that sort. And Bipro was beaming, like beaming, ear to ear smile, so excited. I'm glad that that happened for you guys.
And especially in retrospect, right? Like with
Uh-huh.
Raj longer being here. I mean, those are like some of our fondest memories, like of him and with him. Very cheerful mood to start with that.
Just to add to what Riju saying, it is a
uh,
celebration and
Right.
episode, right? So why not look at it that way? I have to give full credit to Riju, at least for me, even listening to Abigail to begin with, right? And
really?
this is not celebrating Riju, so I'm just going to put it this way: that I so okay, let's dial back a few years, right? So I keep talking about me living in Canada and having access to music, but at that time I was heavily into that black metal phase of mine, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. The years like 2005 and stuff, King Diamond was not active, right?
No, yeah,
Not really.
yeah, but there was this album called "Give Me Your Soul,
Yeah.
Please."
So I'm
Which
I'm
was,
coming to that. So
okay.
one of the perks of working at the radio station where I was doing internet radio, and
Mm-hmm.
the cool part is at that point, just like how you get albums in advance, we used to get actual CDs. But this was 2006, and we I go to the office of sorts that they had where the studio was, and there's this pile of CDs. So I'm like, oh, going through, and suddenly I see it's King Diamond, and it was the single. So at that time, they
Mm-hmm.
used to send even for singles a CD.
Yeah.
So I was like, holy fuck, King Diamond. Like, this is interesting, right? And especially when you see the cover of Give Me Your Soul Please, right? So I'm like, okay, on my show, I'm going to play the song. And I kid you not, I can't remember the single for the life of me now, but I had the hair on my hand stand because it's just that fucking creepy kind of thing, right? That King Diamond does, that
Mm.
whole narration and all of that. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. But by then I'd already left. I think by the time the album came out, but I did remember downloading it and listening to it. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, this is interesting stuff, right? Especially no one's doing it in this kind of story thing. And just like the whole concept in there. And I think by then, I think if I'm not mistaken, by then 2008, Albatross started. Which year did Dinner Is You release? 2008,
There
9?
is you no, was 2009 we recorded it, but before that we had a single called Gigi.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah,
So at that point, I remember at Indian Rock MP3, we were writing about it. Again, the
right.
late Santosh Lobo is a huge Albatross fan, so him talking about it. And then at that point, it was like unabashed, like Riju straight saying that, hey, you know what, this is all kind of like influenced by King Diamond. So that curiosity built. And it's funny when you talk about the Planet M story,
Mm-hmm.
because I remember few years later, and this is, I think, because Riju was not on WhatsApp for the longest time. I
Yeah.
was at Landmark, I think, and there was King Diamond, a couple of albums there, and I was just like, what the fuck? Like, how is a King Diamond album available here? Because you rarely see
Right.
it, right? So I
Uh-huh.
called up Riju and I'm like, Riju, which album should I buy? And he's like, oh, Fatal Portrait is there. Okay, buy it. So I still have that CD on me. And I think around that time is when I was like, okay, let me check out Abigail. So just to come back to what I was saying, right? I mean, while I did hear of King Diamond, it's only because like you guys kept talking so much about that influence and just, the way it was. And then, of course, Andy LaRock, like you said, mastered the things. I was like, okay, let's check out more of this band, right? Because
Right.
like it's one of those bands also, I feel that the image and the sound, like you expect, like, and especially
Right.
when you have already heard like a lot of extreme metal or black metal, right?
Right.
So how do you kind of get used to that, or is that something that you'll really enjoy, right? It just depends.
It's
So
Hmm.
very interesting you say that because so I went to Germany, Berlin. Again, since we are celebrating, like I went there with the late Nitin Rajan. We went
Mm-hmm.
to Wacken Open Air and we saw King Diamond play and stuff like that. And our friends from all our we have common friends in Demonic Resurrection. They were all there and they were all like, "तू इंडिया से जर्मनी आया ये देखने के लिए ये आदमी पागल जैसे चिल्ला रहा है." Like that was their reaction. And uh, there is always that conversation also that comes up, right? Like, what if Merciful Fate had a
Uh-huh.
standard vocalist like James Hetfield and not King Diamond? Would they have been bigger or would they have been smaller? Well,
Nice question.
that's a very interesting question. How about you, Animesh? What do you what? How did you come to King Diamond?
Hmm. So my King Diamond story has traces its roots back to Metallica, as they require of
th-
sorts,
there's the
right?
mandatory Metallica reference for this episode.
Yeah. No, so Metallica did these awesome covers of a few Merciful Fate songs, right?
Right.
And through
Uh,
them is how I got exposed to Merciful Fate. And like when you first listen to Merciful Fate or King Diamond, you're just not ready for that kind of a vocal hit, because previously, like that kind of a vocal hit was only seen or heard in cheesy Bollywood movies and Gujarati dandiya nights, where you have singers who specialize in doing that, right? Where you have this really
Oh my
manly
God.
voice, a really manly voice breaking into falsetto and going uh and giving you such a huge spectrum of just sonic goodness, right? You're not prepared for that in metal as such. At least I wasn't. So when I got to know that, holy shit, this vocalist is able to do it and do it so well. And obviously, if Metallica is covering them, then that means this guy is seriously good, or the band itself is seriously good. So uh managed to go through entire Melissa, really loved it. Went through entire Don't Break the Oath, really loved it. And hence, the next step was to try King Diamond. And luckily, I got hold of Abigail. And yeah, as Riju rightly said, this, I mean, I'd heard concept albums before, even some of the slightly the ones that you don't generally talk about, like for example, Dio's Magica.
Right.
I don't know if you guys have heard that, but
Right. Okay.
so or Wasp's Chainsaw
Crimson Eye.
Charlie, Crimson Idol, yeah, exactly, Crimson Idol, or even the other one, the Neon God, right?
Right.
Those ones were my exploration or my foray into concept albums as such. But then Abigail's a totally different beast
Yeah.
altogether, man. It literally, the story is driving the music,
Right.
and both of them just seamlessly plug into each other and do it. Fuck, it's a brilliant album. It's
But wait, I have to ask you a question. Did you also end up buying the album at Planet M?
I don't remember if it was Planet M or if it was Rhythm House, one of the two. But it had to be one of the two. There was no other place we were getting
Yeah.
that kind of music. But yeah.
But
And
it's in the vicinity, right? Like it's like walking distance from one place
No,
to the
no, I'm just thinking, I was like, fuck, Planet M is where you would get the CDs. Because, like, can you imagine living in like a place like Abu Dhabi? Like, now I think Merciful Fate you would kind of get. But like stuff like King Diamond, Abigail, and all, no chance.
So,
And I think,
sorry, a little bit of a detour, but that Planetum was so good. I remember this because Albatross went to Australia
mhm.
and we were just talking about local Australian bands there. There was a band called Pegasus, which is a very, very underground Australian power metal band. And I got that at Planet M. And like, so once I went there, I'm talking about all the Australian underground bands that I've discovered with the Australian underground bands. And I'm like, yeah, we had a store called Planetum, which was stocking all your stuff and stuff. And their
They
minds
must
were
be
blown.
thrilled.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like, and this was in 2006 or 2007.
Wow.
And you don't think that, right? Like now we look at a metal masala or maybe say a Salman store or something like that, that equivalent, and we know that these guys are in for the music and that's why they have underground titles. But Planetum was a commercial enterprise,
Yep. Yep. They just
and
had
yet,
really good deals, or and basically I think Roadrunner found a place to just
yeah, I think,
throw away their catalog.
yeah, because Roadrunner acts, when I'm thinking about it, like the Sepultura albums, Obituary, there were a lot of that available. And then there was like, towards when we were like really buying metal stuff, was when Century Media started
Mhm.
pushing a lot of music in there. So, wow, one day we have to figure out this. Who's
yeah.
responsible for this Planet M store, the distributor or whoever, curator that got
Yep.
all of us into these albums, right?
Yep. Okay, so wait, before we talk a little bit more about King Diamond and Abigail, here's a question for the room, and it stems from one of my first ever metal debates as such. This was still in college, and it's similar to ones like these where you're just shooting the breeze about metal and music, and there's a difference of opinion. King Diamond. I've seen a lot of places where this band is lumped under black metal. Is it black metal? Is it not black metal? Is it heavy metal? Is it thrash metal? Is it just good rock music? What is it?
He's not black metal. I mean, like, again, considering like all the even you have like your pre-black metal bands, right? Like before the second wave was like who
Venom.
Venom and stuff like
Venom.
that, right?
Yeah.
But like, in if you compare that way, was Venom also a black metal band?
Nah.
Not
Venom
really,
was
just because.
more black metal than King Diamond, definitely, in
Yeah,
my
yeah.
book.
But I'm saying, like,
Yeah,
if you look
but
at it like from today's perspective, right? I'm looking at it from there, or even comparing in there. But if you're
They
saying that,
coined the
then
term black metal, no?
yeah,
Venom.
yeah, it was their
Because of the
album.
song.
Like, I
yeah.
remember listening to black metal much later.
No, so why does King Diamond get lumped into first wave of black metal? Is it just because of the use of corpse paint and the imagery, or is it the Merciful Fate hangover, which is because Merciful Fate, let's face it, talked a lot about uh, Satanism, and he
Yeah,
had an upside down cross on his forehead, etc. Not on his forehead, like whatever, the bridge. It was part of his makeup,
yeah.
right? So,
I would probably put it at that, and also the kind of imagery. I mean, like, I'd love to get like someone from Norway to actually admit that King Diamond was the one that inspired their getup. But well, everyone has a different story about that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my short answer. Riju, I'm sure you've discussed this at length before.
Yeah, all all the time, in fact. Okay, there are two different answers. There's the Merciful Fate answer and
Mm-hmm.
there's the King Diamond answer. King Diamond is not black metal at all, and I don't think anybody has actually called King Diamond black metal either. I could be wrong. King
No, I
Diamond is
mean
yeah,
that's the way King Diamond was also pitched to me earlier, which is what started that conversation. But again, it was in the context of, hey, if Merciful Fate is considered black metal, which a lot of people do, then automatically that makes King Diamond uh, black metal too, because during the time of Abigail, at least, both the bands did coexist. Like
yeah,
in some ways,
yep.
right? Just a few years of difference between their studio albums, etc., and between their whatever the two bands as such were doing. But yeah, nobody today, at least, nobody really considers King Diamond black metal. You're right on that one.
Right.
Hmm.
And I mean, even for Merciful Fate, I mean, let me throw a question to both of you guys. Are there other black metal bands with virtuoso neoclassical lead guitarists? I can't think of any.
That's a
Ah,
very interesting question. But it again, I think what ended up happening is the second wave of black metal just pigeonholed black metal into such a tight definition
Right.
it's like
that
it's like you master your album. How unblack metal of you.
anything else that may even remotely be black metal is not considered true black metal anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
Right.
like you
So
use digital, not black metal. I'm sure like that kind of shit. I mean, of course, what
yeah,
was
it
digital
is. It
back then?
is absolutely. It absolutely. You have the right idea. There was just too much of just this is the only way and there can't be any other way besides it.
But wait, I have to ask you this, considering that you had this discussion at length and you also played in or play in a black metal band. What do you consider King Diamond?
Not black metal, definitely. I mean, heavy metal, sure. Thrash, yeah, could be. So, I mean, you definitely do hear a lot of thrash, and there's a
Yeah.
reason why Metallica, etc., are influenced by them. You can see that. You can hear that in the music too, at least in the earlier albums, right? Um,
And our friend Lu is a huge King Diamond fan. So
of course,
obviously,
he better be.
I mean, Danish.
Exactly, right? Yeah, I'm sure he must be like looking up to him and stuff.
Yeah.
Literally, right? He's supposed to be.
Oh God.
Alrighty. So, with that being said, with that being firmly established, let's now get into Talk Abigail. This is King Diamond's second album, released in May 1987 on Roadrunner Records. The original pressing spans 9 songs to make an album that clocks in at around 40 minutes. The band features King Diamond on vocals, Andy LaRocque and Michael Denner on guitars, Timmy Hansen on bass, Mickey D on drums, and Roberto Falcao on keyboards and engineering duties.
More importantly, this is the band's first ever concept album. So, Riju, here's a challenge for you.
Right.
Almost like Twitter pay tweet, what's the concept on Abigail?
What's okay? Let me correct you there also. Fatal Portrait was like a semi-concept album.
Mhm.
There
Okay.
were three. There were three stories that told a little, and that is what Albatross ripped off like completely through the course of their short-lived career. Yeah, that's what we ripped off. But yeah, okay. So the story of Abigail is uh, there is a newly married couple who are visiting a house, and they are confronted by a bunch of black horsemen as they are described, and they are told, and these two, the couple is told to turn back because 18 is 9, which is not explained through the course of the album, but they are just told that 18 is 9. And as they don't heed the warning of these 9 chutias on the road. They're like,
Seven Chutias.
yeah,
Seven.
They're like, अरे घोड़े पे बैठ के advice देता है, हम लोग जाएगा. So they enter the house, and things start coming alive in the house. And when things start coming alive, there is this specter, this guy called the family ghost, who wakes up. One second. Fuck, I have to. Yeah,
This is
yeah.
why I said you could do this in your sleep.
Okay, okay.
So they arrive in 1845. No, that's what you're
1845. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but the family ghost wakes up the couple, and I see Animesh nodding. I think I'm lost at some point, but I think he takes. He says,
He
"Beware."
tells Jonathan. He tells
Yeah.
Jonathan that, hey,
Better
just
watch out.
better watch out. Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't go into the crypt below
yeah, yeah. Where
Yeah.
Abigail
where Abigail rests. Yeah.
The
And
glory of city.
exactly.
Dude,
Okay.
fuck, like all those parts, right? When you think about it, how it's performed, and especially like back then, because correct me if I'm wrong, this is recorded on analog, na?
Yep.
Right. Yes.
Fuck,
24 track.
damn. So basically, they could only record 24. Wow.
Exactly. Imagine if Abigail was recorded today.
No, but
Oof.
Abigail 2, they did much later, and it didn't have the same kind of charm as Abigail 1.
We'll
So
get to that.
maybe.
We'll get to that.
Wait,
Sure.
Unforgiven too.
So, I mean, in a nutshell, I mean, Abigail was in a year for years and years. So Abigail was the spirit of a stillborn child, and Miriam Natius, the bride, gets impregnated with the spirit of this child. And again, to cut a long story short, what happens is the whole album ends with baby Abigail eats through Miriam's tummy and comes out, and yeah, the Black Horsemen, they witness it, and we learn what happens to Jonathan and everybody else in Abigail 2, the next album. I know I'm
Hmm.
leaving out important parts. I should have done my homework, but like in a nutshell, this is
Listen,
basically.
all of that is Googleable.
Yeah, yeah.
All of that is Googleable, but how metal of a fucking story is that?
But
Absolutely.
wait, I was reading up on this, and this story, 75% of this was written by King Diamond in one night during a stormy night in there. And I was just like, what the fuck? Like literally, like he woke up in a stormy night and wrote 75% of this story in one night. Like that is like again something
Yeah,
else.
it is. It's a lovely short story. I mean,
Yeah.
if it's proper horror,
Yeah.
and the concept is fleshed out beautifully over 9 songs, which let's explore in the order of appearance, starting with Funeral, which uh tells the story or introduces the story from the perspective of the Black Horseman,
Yeah.
right? And who basically narrate the funeral of Abigail,
Right.
but you really don't.
Know what the fuck is happening, right? And
Yeah,
that's-
you really don't know what the fuck is happening, and but the atmosphere itself is so beautifully set that you're immediately you're chilled to the bone, because you're like, holy shit, what is this? And b the it as an introduction, like if it's the first thing you're hearing when you press play on a CD, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it like this goes back to what I was saying earlier, right? I mean, if this was my like initial introduction to King Diamond and stuff like that, I'd be like, what the fuck am I listening to, right? And I mean, since all of us are in the same age group, thanks Raju for now making me feel that. I mean, we've all watched those TV shows that used to come, right? Ahart and Z Horror Show, and
Yeah,
for those who are
perfect. Yeah.
from India, it kind of sets that. And
Yeah.
when I think about it, right, and I'm probably going to even like pepper this throughout the story, but the horror was not what you saw on screen, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
just that sound, the few elements that you saw that left your imagination go like, holy crap. And
Exactly.
this
Yep.
is what,
I always maintain that you're scared of the unknown.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like you'd see stuff and you'd be like, okay, this is not really scary, but it's that music, right? And I think like that's what when I was revisiting Funeral, I'm like, this reminds me, and I don't know why suddenly it all came together. Like this is exactly that. And yeah, man, fucking creepy as fuck. I don't think I could listen to it like in the dead of night, honestly. I'm a wuss when it comes to all that stuff.
And even in later albums, I mean, King Diamond has these non-songs.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's this Kiran from Primitive. I mean, his favorite King Diamond song is Two Little Girls from this album called The Eye, which is just, I mean, very. It's a nothing song. It's just King shrilly like talking about this little girl went down there. Like it's just King doing this for like 2 minutes, and it is extremely eerie. Then there is a song called Up from the Grave in this album called The Graveyard.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like that's just King doing na 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 na.
Oh,
He's
fuck.
just doing stuff like that. It's just like setting the mood for like the rest of the story to follow. And I personally love this. Like I have always in each one of my musical endeavors, I'm always like dial back the metal to set some kind of mood. But everybody's like, no, people come to watch, so like let's give them something to take back home. But those are my favorite parts of every album. So I would say Funeral is probably like one of my favorite things.
So basically, that whole kissing flies part was like lifted, I'm guessing.
Not lifted because
I
we
mean, like
didn't
the
come up.
inspiration, I'm saying.
We didn't come up with it. Do you mean Wither the intro? That was it's very interesting you bring that up because another band which was doing a lot of atmospheric stuff back in the day was our mutual friend Madhav Menon was constantly this thing. He was pushing this band called Rat King, and
Fuck.
yeah,
Dude, that album, those two albums actually that they released.
the
Have you heard
incredible.
them, Animesh?
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fucking it goes back. It's exactly the same kind of sonic template I'm talking about, right? The storyline in that was such that you just heard everything and it just left you imagining the entire story, however fucked up you wanted it to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
So
go ahead, Jiju.
no, so what I was saying is, I mean, we fulfilled our Andy LaRocque aspirations with the first album. In the second one, we were all fascinated by Rat King, and we are like, we have to work with Murari. It was Deepak and Murari. So Murari came up with the template for this thing, Wither, the whole kissing flies uh, uh, thing. So it's not so much inspired by King Diamond because I don't think he was personally such a this thing.
Yeah.
It's just when your approach is such that the music serves the story instead of the other way around. I think you tend to take that approach.
Alrighty. So the next track, which is Arrival, formally begins the story as such, as Riju lovelily, that's not a word, as Riju told us earlier. And yes, it took me a long time to try and understand why 18 becomes 9. That line absolutely flummoxed me. I was like, what do they mean? Why is it 18 becoming 9? I mean, mathematically, it's just not valid. So
Do you know it now?
yeah, I know it now. Peter, do you know why 18 becomes 9?
Is this something to do with wait? She is 18.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
character.
Yeah. So Miriam is aged 18, which you're not told, right?
Yeah.
And apparently Jonathan is age 27.
Oh my
And
god. Yeah.
no,
Dude.
so that's not the difference. But 18 will become 9 because Miriam will give way to a 9-month-old Abigail.
Oh my God.
I mean, because it takes 9 months, right? To
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
So
Boxer
which is
record.
why 18 becomes 9.
So that's like they're pre-calling it or predicting it in a way, kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's them. That's their warning. I mean, if only the Black Horseman could have been a little bit more clearer.
It's like, अबे नीचे मत जा, मैं बोला.
Just don't go.
Yeah,
There's a messed up stillborn baby there, which is haunting that house. Don't go.
no,
That's much
because
clearer than saying 18 will become 9.
that wouldn't have worked because the family ghost told them, right? Don't go. So the family ghost even told them, but they didn't listen to either the horseman or the family ghost.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. That's true. But Arrival also sets the musical pace, like just sets the musical template so well for this particular album because you've got Andy LaRocque who's fucking nailing it with the themes. You've got Denner who's nailing it with the solos. The bass work is on point. The drums are on point. Everything is coming together. And of course, King's vocals and all his different accents and vocal modulation for each, almost like every character you can still
Yeah.
identify which part is being sung through whose eyes or through whose lens or through whose mouth, etc. Oh, beautifully done.
Okay. Can I ask the question, which will kind of set, I think, something in there? And it's going back to what you said, right? Like the whole Gujarati, because I never thought of that. Now I can't unhear it now. Maybe I have to give some space. But be honest, right? And we can do this quickly. Were you instantly like accepting of that whole falsetto by King?
I genuinely thought at first it was two vocalists.
Okay.
My very first listen to Merciful Fate was like, no man, this can't be one guy.
But in general, I'm saying with the music and stuff like that.
I was okay with it. Yeah.
Did you?
Because it brought
Yeah.
it brought together like the highs that Bruce Dickinson could pull off. It brought together that vibe and it brought together the regular metal vocal vibe, the old school heavy metal vocal vibe. So I was very okay with it, but I genuinely didn't know that it was coming from one man. And at that time, I didn't know that this was falsetto. So
Did you?
I was surprised.
In fact, like I said, I was a Merciful Fate fan before that, and In the Shadows is like their most accessible, their safest kind of thing. A lot of people have actually said that it sounds more like a King Diamond album than a Merciful Fate album because it's
Okay.
all stories, the Old Oak and the Bell Witch and Egypt and stuff like that. So yeah, in like I was used to it, I loved it, and the fact that I could go back and it was a lot more unleashed back at that time because I think in the 90s what happened is, I mean, Sahil put it wonderfully, like right now there is this whole thing about are program drums hai, so that's a bad thing, right? But in the 90s I think program drums were the cool new thing,
Yeah,
right?
it was the cool new
Of
thing.
course.
Yeah.
Dude, the Def Leppard albums, there's so many albums.
I mean,
that
Def
fucking-
Leppard could definitely use program drums.
Oh, snap.
Yes, I went there. Sorry.
Oh, snap. No, so the reason I wanted to get both your opinions, because for me, it took a while to kind of get used to it, right? And I think it's going back. I mean, again, we recently did this episode on Dream Theater, and I talked about just like how for me, James Libre's voice is a hit or miss
Mhm.
in there. The only reason I think I could deal with it or I was okay with it because it was part of that story, right? You knew there was that character and it kind of flows in there. But I'm just trying to think because for me, power metal, the thing that turns me off about is the cheesy vocals, that like shrieky thing in there. And like I'm happy with all the music and even the keyboards and everything, strangely. But yeah, for me, sometimes the vocals is the deal breaker. So that's why I
Cheesy
thought
vocals, I'll forever maintain. Cheesy vocals, if done with conviction and done with like where you can detect authenticity, right? And that's easily detectable. You can tell when it's just cheese for cheese sake, as such. But I like that kind of soaring operatic vocals.
yeah.
When it works, it works.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like for all the shit that the world gives, which is fucking forgetting the band's name, Dragon Force.
Right.
That vocalist, that P Thirst or whoever, he nailed it. He nails that
I mean,
kind of style.
they're the cheeses all over the guitars, and you all have seen that this, right? The video, I can't remember. In the mid 2000s, they had a video where it was basically dueling guitars, and then at one point the
Through
guy's
the Fire
drinking
and Flames.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the most popular
That's
one.
the,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and like the amount of conviction and just presence that King Diamond has, I don't think there's anyone better than to do that kind of a cheesy vocal.
No, fair enough.
Yeah. And Arrival just beautifully announces that.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So let's move on to the next track, which is called A Mansion in Darkness. I love the themes and the melody over here. It tells the story, takes the story forward. Lovely use of sound effects, etc., because you actually start hearing the mansion coming to life.
Yep.
Yeah. Any thoughts on this particular song, guys?
Yeah, I mean, this song especially was the template for like my bands to follow, because we had heard like twin leads before in the form of Judas Priest and Iron Maiden, but this whole neoclassical inspired kind of this thing, twin leads, where
Mhm.
everything is in sync, everything is so beautifully harmonized, but it's not, how do I put this, it doesn't sound like anything else that I've heard until then. Was amazing. It was, everything just fell into place, and I love all the musicians that came after this, but Timmy Hansen, the late Timmy Hansen, again, brilliant guy. He was, in my opinion, the best bassist that was
Yep,
using.
I agree. I absolutely agree with you, because the stuff that you have to actually like listen very intently to try and listen to him, because he's not very prominent in the mix or anything of that sort. But then when you do manage to isolate his tracks or just get the sonic grip on what he's doing as such and the role of bass, it's amazing. He's not playing root notes.
Absolutely.
He's coloring within the lines, and he's coloring beautifully within the lines. Yep, absolutely. So
Also, Mickey D, I think he was the best drummer that they had. I thought, like, when he joined Motorhead, I know Bangalore will crucify me, but, but when he joined Motorhead, he was a lot more limited than when he was in
Mhm.
King Diamond.
They took away they took away part of his kit. I'm joking.
Part of the, sorry.
I said they took
they
away part of
probably
his
did.
kit. It's
Right? I
like,
mean, when you hear Motorhead kind of music and when you hear King Diamond kind of music, he doesn't really need the second tom now, does he?
Yeah.
No, for me, I think like the guitar work is just like beautiful, right? And it's just like it's not, and I think that's one of the things overall I like about the album, right? Is that everything is in place, right?
Mhm.
And it's beautifully like arranged, all of it.
Yeah.
Like till then, a lot of like, and I was talking about the black metal phase, right? You have always certain instruments or certain things like, and if you think about rock and metal, generally the mix, right? You always have like the vocals on top and then everything kind of like there, or you'll have like certain bands or certain kind of genres where you'll have like say the guitars are higher in there and stuff like that. Bass, both of you will agree, since you're a bassist, that doesn't get like, it's like, oh, bass also is there kind of thing, right? And this, the way it's kind of arranged, every instrument is kind of given its prominence, and it's not like at no point did you feel that. And just to go back to the last celebration, there's no vankery here, right? There's no one kind
Yeah.
of like
Right.
showing off or trying to say like, I know this. Like even
Right.
when you're talking about this neoclassical, it's not like, oh, I need to like, show off, right? It's just like, it's not like Ingve Malmsteen. There, I said it.
Yeah, of course. And everything just sounds cohesive, and everything sounds like as if it needs to be on there,
Yeah.
which is exactly what you're saying too. Alrighty. So with that, we move into track number 4, which is The Family Ghost. Ah,
Dude, this part is like, how the hell did like At this point, when it comes to this part of the album, right, I wish I was like a fly on the wall when you're talking about like you just have the limitation of 24 tracks. uh at some point I'm sure like if King Diamond like was given the opportunity now or was doing it now, imagine like he'd probably just get like an orchestra or get like multiple string instruments and whatnot to kind of add to it, right? when
Yeah.
i'm
Mhm.
when i'm thinking about it.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. He does a lot of ad libbing in this part. I mean, which is beware of the slippery stairs. You can easily fall.
Yeah, like
And
what
what
the
you think? Fuck that. Those. Yeah.
And those are the things
Yeah.
that will still remain with you, man.
Right.
Apparently, by the way, guys, I read this one like while just reading a shit ton about Abigail to prep for this episode, but I really couldn't find it and I couldn't spot it. But there's this apparently there's a hidden "oh damn" or something which appears in this song towards the end, which both King Diamond and um I'm forgetting his name. Both King Diamond and the guy who engineered the album, which was,
Falcao.
yeah, Falcao, both say that they didn't record, but it ended up being on one of the tracks and they couldn't pinpoint how it got on, and they couldn't even remove it or isolate it or something. So much so that now, whenever King Diamond has to perform this song live, he just snarls that, oh, damn, before the end. And I think it comes in towards the last verse or just before the last verse. But I've been trying to listen to it and I've been trying to find it, but I really can't seem to find it. Have you guys ever heard this story
Uh,
and have tried to find this? Oh,
uh, so
damn.
so no, but but the one thing, and I'm going to I mean ruin a lot of people's expectations with this, but I have had the chance to interview King Diamond once, and the
Hmm.
one thing about him, and every fan will tell you this, every hardcore fan, is that he lies through his teeth. Okay, like, like every single story that he says, right, is like I was recording and the candles that I lit started floating in the air and stuff like that, and we're all like, "Ha, theek hai, bhai, chalega, chalega." So when I interviewed him was during a phase when he kept talking about, there was a photograph taken of him during one of the shows, and
Hmm.
there is a severed leg of a lady right behind him. And
Okay.
he kept mentioning that in every interview, and like a few fans told me that make sure you conduct this interview and make sure he doesn't tell the same story. And the interview went for 3 hours, and for 2 hours 59 minutes he did not. But before he hung up, yeah, he mentioned the story of this thing. He has his whole quirks, and he starts rumors like I sleep in a coffin and stuff like that, just to yeah.
I think see, but okay, just to add to that, right? This is before also probably the time before like Instagram and all that stuff was there, right?
Right.
So like I'm trying to think of like if King Diamond had access to Instagram or he was like really active as a musician, can you imagine the shit he would have done? Like Metal Sucks would have been like posting screenshots like, oh my god, look what has happened and all of that, right? But in the pre-internet days, it was, I mean, come on, let's be honest. We all heard the story of Marilyn Manson removing
That's a
two of his.
worldwide rumor.
Yeah,
I
but
mean, yeah, it's a rumor that no, that's a surprising thing about it, right? It's a rumor that's spread across countries.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
like, this is the thing about pre-internet days, right?
Yep,
Now it's so much
absolutely.
easier.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, I think just the highlights for me of this track are just all the voices and all that stuff like that. I think that creepy, I don't know how to else to describe it, that laugh,
Hmm.
fucking haunting, dude.
And this was, I think this was just the start, because there is this song on the Eye called
Hmm.
The Trial,
Yeah,
where
I've heard this one.
you've heard this, no? So it's basically a trial which is happening, and a woman is being tried for being a witch, and King Diamond plays everyone in that courtroom, from the lawyer to the woman to like everybody who's accusing the woman. And I think the seeds of that style were born from the family Ghost.
Oh, that's
Wow.
definitely, yeah, easy correlation can definitely be made. Alrighty, so let's move on to the next song, which is The Seventh Day of July 1777, which is one of, I think it's my second favorite song on this album. I love the way it begins, the acoustic intro, and then the guitars kick in. Here's a question for you guys: which solo is better?
Oh
Do
fuck.
you even care at this point? I
I
don't. It was a trick question. Both the solos are fantastic.
I put, just to be safe, I had already put like the one at like the 230 mark. That was my note, but it doesn't matter, right? Like it's all across the album in there.
Okay,
Yeah.
you just ended up picking Mike Denner over Andy LaRocque, by the way.
Well, I'm not going to say much about Denner because I know what Riju's going
No,
to.
no, no. I love Denner. Like, why would I say anything bad
No,
about
no.
him?
Who isn't Denner the guy left out of the
Yeah,
whole
of the
thing?
Merciful Fate
Yeah.
reunion. Yeah. No, no,
Yeah.
so that's the most interesting thing is okay. So back then, Denner is known for his melodious, very
Yeah.
feel based kind of solos, and LaRocque at that time was doing all the complicated stuff. But after Denner left, and then Pete Black left, and they had some American guys after King shifted to the US. One some guy called Herb Simonson or something. Finally, they got this guy called Mike Weed, who's still the
Hmm.
guitarist of the band right now. He is this technical wizard, and LaRocque is so good now. He's the feel based player. So yeah, I
The
mean,
roles have reversed.
sorry, yeah, the roles have reversed. And yeah, this was something that like I also wanted to emulate in my bands, where two guitarists are so good that they can adopt either style if one person has to, yeah. Like you can play the more feel based solo in the song and the technical solo while yeah this thing. But anyway, like moving back to the song, I think it, yeah, there's this odd time element to it also, which begins the entire song, right?
Hmm.
Which I which was so the album begins on not such a complex note. Then the Family Ghost has a little bit of a progressive element. Then this one is a little more progressive. Then Deadly Omens becomes a lot more, not maybe not progressive, but a lot more aggressive. So I love the
Yeah.
progression also in terms of the musical aspect.
Yeah. Do you guys think that uh, King picked July because it rhymes with die?
Oh my God. Again, this is probably something he started.
And this
Oh,
was
but I think it's also like, if you think about it, right? I think in certain scriptures like 7 7 or the
yep.
number 7. So this is, I think, probably him just like twisting that up, right?
Yep.
Probably.
And I think 9 and 6 are related to the devil, while 7 is like a more holy this thing, right?
Yeah, so that's where I feel he's just like played that, because I mean, come on, by then, like everyone and the, I don't know, grandmother knows about the 666 and all of that, right?
Yep.
So this is him
Yeah.
just trying to doing it.
Yeah. The creepiest lyric over here is probably the lyrical idea over here is probably like, why does the count want to mummify this child, man?
Dude, this is why I'm
It's
telling you, right? Like it's not just the horror, it's just like, again, the detail that it's there. And the fact that, think about it, and I'm putting this right at this point, right? 35 years, we still don't know what the fuck all this is about, and we're still discussing this. I think like King is
no,
probably at some point.
it's just that kind of it's just that grotesque of an
Yeah.
idea, right? Like I can imagine Cannibal Corpse going around the room and going like members in Cannibal Corpse going around listening to Abigail and going like, ooh, song idea, ooh, song idea, ooh, song idea,
I mean, like, come on, the number of songs they
right?
have about stillborn and whatnot.
Exactly, exactly. Anyways, moving on. The next song, again, one of my favorites is called Omens. And
I
fuck,
mean,
I love it not just for the vocal work over here, but because of LaRocque's solo, which kick in just after the synths kick in.
Yeah.
It absolutely overshadows Denner's parts in this song.
I mean,
Yeah,
you guys shouldn't be surprised that this is one of my favorites, just because, like, how Riju nicely described it, right? And I like how Anime said like thrash, black metal, and all of that, but just look at the progression in of the story and the sound and everything, right? But I
Mhm.
have to add this tidbit, and I haven't had a chance to watch this, but and this is why I love YouTube, right?
Mhm.
Is there's a video of King Diamond in New Year of of 93 New Year's Eve or whatever,
Oh, I know the
performing the
one that you're
song.
talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, performing the song with Pantera.
Yeah.
So
I was actually coming to that. Do you guys think this is King Diamond's version of Paranoid? The easiest song that you can do? Because I mean, what other song can you put in that category? Like the Trooper, Paranoid, Breaking the Law of King Diamond is.
Probably. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, and
Hey,
especially of
Pantera can play it.
oh snap! Oh snap!
Joke, guys. That was a joke.
Oh, God. I think someone should come up with this game, like all these legacy bands that we keep dropping reference to on the episode, right?
Yeah.
Okay. After Omens, we move into the possession, where finally the possession happens. I would love to hear Metallica cover this song, frankly, because obviously, minus the vocals, you
Yeah, I was
slap
just
on.
like, how
No,
many
you
vocals?
slap on Headfield vocals or something on top of this. It sounds just like a Metallica song or whatever. That's saying how much of an influence King Diamond was on Metallica as such, right? Um, I love the second part of the song that begins with the acoustic break. And the lyrical question I have over here is, who do you think says, I will get what is rightfully mine? Do you,
1 second. Let me just.
so it comes in after the first solo, right? And all this while, Miriam is saying that she's having the baby, right? But
Right.
then the narrator says that she was possessed and he knew. So who do you think says, I will get what is rightfully mine? Do you think that's the first time we hear Abigail speak through Miriam? Or is it,
Yeah, because I am looking at the lyrics now. It's been a while. I'm looking at the lyrics. The next line is speaking in different tongues.
yeah,
So I am guessing that I mean it is the whole theme is the possession, right? So the possession has happened, and Abigail has said, "I will get what is right for mine."
fuck. Instant chill just went through the spine again. No?
I mean, I'm laughing for a reason.
Yeah, laughter
I,
keeps everything away, no?
just to mask everyone from knowing that like I'm gonna
Yeah,
sleep.
we're collectively shitting our pants here. And that's the beauty of this album, anyways, right? But that's the beauty of the song too, which leads us to the self-titled Abigail. Oh, different voices again.
Yeah.
And even though, like, here's my takeaway from this, right? Even though you've heard the falsetto now for like 30 minutes, when Abigail starts to speak, you know it is Abigail speaking. And at the same time, she just sounds so evil.
I am alive.
Oh, dude, that is
the last line, man. That soon I'll be free.
Yeah, that part
Holy
also.
shit. Goosebump-inducing moment. Goosebump-inducing moment.
At this point, like King must have been sitting in a dark room with like all these candles.
He'll probably tell you that, according to Richo.
Yeah.
And he's like, and then I was possessed. I was told the story. I was told
it came
to
to
bring the
me
story.
because I was, maybe, who knows?
And the funny part is, so Tim Ripper Owens actually covered this song. Did a wonderful thing. Did a wonderful job on the Roadrunner sessions. But it does not sound scary at all. When he does it, it sounds like, it's very empowering. I am alive inside your wife.
Wait, the Roadrunner United one?
Yep.
No way.
Yeah. So there were two aspects to it. There was
I'm sorry, I'm still cracking up about how this song can be empowering.
Yeah, it's like, dude.
I know what you mean, Peter. You mean that King Diamond and Trivium did like a this thing, no? Did a song together for this thing for the Roadrunner United. But
Hmm.
also there was this live version of it of the 40th
Ha ha
album.
ha. Okay, so it wasn't on record, right?
It was on record, but it was like one of the bonus discs, I think, where
Okay.
Ah, yeah,
Tim
because I
Kazuro-
remember like, and the thing is, the time also it came out where you had like Trivium, you had Dino
yeah,
Sedaris, Matt Heafy,
yeah.
all these guys there, right? So I'm just like, these guys were how old when this came out, right? But
And Scott Ian has to show up, right? Like at every, like
Ooh, I found the cover and I'm going to try and watch it later.
oh, send it. This,
From
this
the
is why I'm looking.
Roadrunner United concert.
yep,
Yeah,
yep.
concert. Yeah,
He does
I
a
will.
wonderful job, but it's not scary at all. Like, yeah.
Okay, can I say this?
What?
What?
Because both of you is like, is this why? What is this one more evidence of how Owens ruins things?
Probably.
Oh God. No, but
Oh,
like,
God.
dude, that part, and especially like the first time you hear it, is scary as fuck. And then it repeats, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, what the fuck is going on? And I'm gonna repeat myself, but this is that song where I was saying, right? Like what you don't see and what you can just hear, and you can hear all these different parts that
Mhm.
actually like freaks you the fuck out.
Yep,
Absolutely. Which
yep.
brings us to the last song, if you've got the original version of this album, of course, which is the ninth song, which is The Black Horseman, or actually just titled Black Horseman. This is my favorite track of the entire album. You've got double track solos by Andy LaRocque, one playing higher notes, one playing normal notes. That fabulous introduction, the fabulous change of pace, the way the song ends. It's like this is a short story. This is a chapter that's worthy of being just a short story in itself. Like, even if this was the only song that King Diamond had released and there was no other story as such mentioned, it still stands absolutely strong, right?
I mean, to your point, what you said about Black Horseman being the best, a story in itself. I would go so far as to say that Black Horseman is probably a better story than all of Dark Side of the Moon or Tommy or any of those classic concept albums, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just Black Horseman in itself is like a journey that you go on from start to finish.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Absolutely.
And
Good.
you think that it's going to like be, I don't know, a Dokken type ballad, like when it starts off with acoustic guitar and clean guitar and all that, and then it just becomes something else. It morphs into like
Yeah,
you.
it's a beast of a song.
Is this your favorite song on the album, Animesh?
Yeah, it is. It
Eh,
is. Absolutely. And I think it also has to do with the ending theme, which picks
Right.
up after basically the story has come to an end, and you're told that the story has come to an end because Diamond or King says that, that's the end of another lullaby. Time has come for me to say goodbye. Also, I'm wondering who's saying that, because I mean, now Abigail, I think, is dead, right? Or maybe the funeral, or which is the first song, right? When you hear that, now it makes a lot more sense again, because that's what they're talking about.
Yep. Yep.
I don't know who ends up saying that, but
No, I think that's like breaking kayfabe at the end and like just saying
yeah, it's just the narrator going it. Yeah, I agree with you. What do you think baby Abigail was eating?
the
Fuck.
the insides of the mother, like
Yeah, like, but like, which part?
garb, garb.
God, what is God? for, for me, I don't know. Like I read, and that's the thing, right? Because the narrator doesn't like say.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know. I don't want to imagine this because then I won't sleep at night.
I mean,
That,
what?
that, that's the
Placenta,
difference.
intestines,
Yeah,
stomach.
yeah.
But
This is
that is
Cannibal Corpse territory, guys.
Yeah,
yeah, that's what I was coming to. The only difference being everything is implied, nothing is
Mhm.
said out loud, right? Like,
Exactly, and that's the beauty of it.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
I
don't
mean,
need to know about entrails ripped.
like that, and I'm just wondering, just a thought. Why the fuck was like this album not a big problem by Tipper Gore, but like all the other albums, like did she not, or did they not like flag? This is definitely before the sticker came on, right? Explicit content one.
Yeah, so much so that one of Merciful Fate songs. Yeah, I think one of them made it to the top or whatever that. Uh,
List. Huh?
yeah, that list, that 15 list or 16 list. But this, yeah, I mean, you would have to really listen to this album to actually
Yeah.
understand why it was
I mean,
maybe needed a sticker or something. But doesn't really need a sticker. No, it's not.
Yeah,
It's not explicit. It's just horror.
yeah. It's less gory than The Omen, right? Like,
Yeah,
if you actually, yeah,
it's actually a very. It's a very straightforward, nice
no,
story.
I'm again. See, I'm putting it into context of the year, right? At this point, like when you have like I don't know, at Gorgind and all of that, those covers and all of that shit, or even like the lyrical content, all of this seems very tame.
It is,
yeah,
Yeah,
but
when I'm
it
thinking
is.
about it, right?
That's exactly what I'm driving at.
Hmm.
As a story, it's a very tame story. Even by
yeah,
horror standards, it's a very simple premise. There's nothing truly spooky as such that happens
yeah,
here. But that's the beauty of it because of so many parts just left unsaid, or not left unsaid, but deliberately left unsaid, and where you're left to use your imagination. The music and the story together make it wow.
Yeah, yeah. And I
Okay.
think that's the beauty of the overall concept, right?
yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, have you guys heard the extended or deluxe version of the album, which has an additional song called The Shrine?
Yeah, yeah.
Is that
Voices are
a
calling in the night.
yeah?
Yeah.
Is that a continuation of the story in any
No, no, no,
manner?
no, no.
No, right?
No, no, no.
Ah,
Darkness, you are my holy shrine. That is like King David just singing to the darkness and
correct.
saying, yeah.
Andhera kayam rahe.
That was who? Tamraj Kilvish, right?
Yeah, I yeah yeah.
That was
Shaktiman,
Shaktiman's.
Shaktiman's arch rival. Absolutely. Okay, so that, ladies and gentlemen, was Abigail. Riju, do you want to tell us what Abigail 2 was about?
I really don't remember. I remember buying it in Australia, and my baby cousins, I told them switch off the lights. This is going to be amazing, and it wasn't. Like I didn't like Abigail 2 at all, because before Abigail 2 is when I heard the Puppet Master, the album that followed, which I still think is the best King Diamond story. That was very creepy. Abigail 2 was. Um, I really can't remember, but Jonathan is in a wheelchair because he can't walk anymore. And
Yeah,
yeah. All
yeah,
of
and
that.
it's
Do you have
revealed.
the story?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, the story is there for everyone to read. Even when you're reading it, you realize that it's a lot more of story, and it's not as. I mean, it's definitely more gorier, in a way, and it's definitely the horror elements continues, but it isn't as magical as Abigail is. All right, which then brings me to the question. I'm glad you brought it up too. If you had to choose only one album that could continue to represent King Diamond to the world, would that album be Abigail? For me, it would. There's no other album that comes close to the kind of magic that Abigail brings out.
If you're asking me, that's a very difficult question because okay, again, taking a little bit of a detour, Jay from Albatross, he keeps asking me to this day, like, what was the Albatross sound like? And I said the beauty of our sound was we didn't know, and when we went into like the jam room, what we are going to come up with, right?
Mhm.
So I think every King Diamond album like that is a different story, very different chapter. Uh, you can even say it's a different style of storytelling. House of God is like the whole conspiracy theory kind of thing. The Graveyard, I mean, there's a pedophile involved, and like that's a very different kind of story. So I really don't know, but is Abigail my favorite album of all time? Yes. So I guess if you put me in a spot like that, yes, I would say that.
Peter, what do you think?
Yeah, I would totally agree. I mean, like, I'm just trying to think, like, because it's so. How long has it been, Riju, since there's a new album talks happening of King Diamond?
Or it's been what, 3-4
Since
years
since
now?
we
I mean,
started the podcast, even
yeah,
before we
we've been
started the
talking
podcast.
about the Institute. That's what it's apparently called.
Yeah.
No, no, no. So it's way longer. So I remember asking Andy LaRocque over the phone. I think I only hired him to ask him this question: when is the new album coming out? And he's like, yeah, we're writing some stuff. And this was 2009.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, it's been 13 years since then. But King, I think he had a heart attack. Then
Yep.
before that,
Yeah.
he had a slip disc problem and something. So
So,
that is.
like the reason I asked that, right, is like for a lot of people who are listening may not have heard King Diamond. I think this is the perfect one, right? I mean, like, not everyone will call Riju up and say, "Hey, kaun sa album khareedna hai from these ones which are still available in there," right? Like that luxury you don't have, or CDs more than calling Riju, I think, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think
Um,
like if we could, sorry, go ahead.
sorry. I just wanted to say that I mean a good friend of all of us, Dipro, who also likes King Diamond a lot, would probably disagree and say them. That's his favorite
Hmm.
album.
I buy that too. Yeah, a lot of people would say them.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I mean, it's just a little more polished version of it. But I find the story, I mean, with the serial killing grandma to be a little on the cheesier side as compared to this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when them is not really for me. I prefer the 90s albums like House of God and The Graveyard and what else? Voodoo. Voodoo is a fantastic album with
I
uh
haven't heard that.
okay, it features Peter's favorite guitarist of all time, Dimebag Darrell. So
I love how it's like Peter's favorite guitarist, and I'm like, fuck, who is my favorite guitarist of all time?
but
Riju
he's
is,
really good on the album as well. Like yeah.
yeah. I mean, like, see that's the thing, right? I mean, like, wait, Voodoo. Have I heard it? I probably must have heard a song or two.
I am sure
Mm-hmm.
you have. So Voodoo made the best part, no, and like I don't know why no other metal band has thought of this. There are those voodoo drums playing behind the whole thing, and that adds such a great atmosphere to the whole thing. And even
Wait,
that has
you
this
just
baby.
didn't you just describe a Soulfly album?
Better than
But okay, I'm surprised that you're laughing at it because I know you know which Soulfly song I'm talking about.
no, I do not.
Dude,
Which
they
one?
had that new metal phase and they had that one
I,
song and they had the tribal drums or whatever in the background.
also Kiowas, right? Like yeah,
Oh,
you can.
true, true.
Already. To sum it up, Abigail, can it be considered an all A's album? Even
Yeah,
if we don't look at it like as an all A's, maybe.
overall 100%. I mean, like, it's like I said, right? It's not just the music itself, the story itself, the package itself. And like when I'm thinking about it, like, man, I'd
Even
love to,
literally, I think this could be an all A's.
yeah. If you have to break it up also, yeah, 100%, man.
Yeah, right?
There's so much in there. And I'm just surprised. I think probably just because of like the labels and things like that, right? But when you think about it, like this is the stuff that everyone should kind of get into at the start, right? Like when I was talking about Riju at the start, right? Just to kind of come a full circle. Like I wish there were like more Rijus who just went like
Arey,
talking about King Diamond and stuff like that because you don't see it, right? I mean, honestly, like with the last I was reading, like any big publication kind of talk about it, is when they actually did the entire Abigail album live, which was
Mm-hmm.
2015.
Mm-hmm.
It's been
Right.
7 years since. So like post that, there isn't much talk except that it's coming in there. And there's like, if you think about it, in those 7 years or even the last few years, there's a new generation of metalheads who are now listening to Metallica and Stranger Things and getting into the scene, right?
Exactly. And if you give those kind of fans who like Stranger Things, etc., a copy of Abigail,
Yeah, fuck, actually, dude, trust me.
yeah,
Like,
But they might be turned off by the vocals. I mean, that is always.
but see,
Yeah.
that's the thing, right? I mean, uh, maybe the next season of Stranger Things. What do you say?
Yeah.
There'll be like, who knows? Suddenly renounces King Diamond because now entire world is listening to King Diamond and saying it's a famous band. You sold out.
that might not be a bad thing, actually.
I'm
Yeah,
joking.
that might not be a
I'm
bad
just joking.
thing at all.
So, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, that was us celebrating Abigail. May Abigail's spirit. Okay, no, actually, no, maybe no. I don't want
No.
Abigail's spirit to live on,
Yeah.
etc., etc.
Second album, good enough. उसके बाद खत्म.
Let me ask one question before we end this entire thing. What is your and purely from the story perspective, not even from this thing, not even from the music perspective. What is your favorite concept album not featuring King Diamond?
Hmm. Good question. I would say, okay, the only one that comes to me like up front and the one that I've heard repeatedly, and that's also because how much accessibility, etc., is probably Wasp's Neon God, the Rise and the Demise, both, because that was one of the very first concept albums that I actually heard end to end, and it brought out the joy of having to hear an entire story across an album. Yeah. And I mean, I'd heard Seven Son of a Seven Son before that, but I don't consider that a concept album as much as it is a thematic album.
Right, right.
Yeah.
It's a very bad story. Like if you
That,
actually compare, yeah,
yeah, absolutely. And um I'm like, even The Wall,
yeah,
unless you've seen the movie,
yeah,
it's a pretty tough task to string that story together,
yes,
right? If you're only hearing the album.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah. Yeah. What about you, Riju?
Oh, I would say the only other album that comes close in terms of this thing is Operation Mindcrime.
Huh.
Uh, yeah, I mean
Good
that's
pick. Yeah.
yeah, that's the only story album that Queensryche ever did, and that was the other thing I stole from, right? Like Doctor X is the antagonist there, and yeah, I stole the character from there. So yeah,
There's a I also remember I because of how much I was into Spawn, I remember there's an Iced Earth album that's an
the Dark
entire
Saga,
Spawn story, no?
the
Apparently.
dark, yeah, the Dark Saga. I think,
Hmm.
yeah, the Dark Saga is 96, I think. It is fine. It is
Yeah,
eight.
it doesn't, I don't remember any of the songs, which goes to show how much, I mean, yeah. But I devoted crazy amounts of time trying to listen to it. The
Mhm.
other one that I would say is the last Death Clock album, or which was the Doomstar Requiem, I think, which is a proper concept album because it ended up telling the entire story. It was the soundtrack to what the last movie type
Season.
special episode, whatever they released. So that is technically it's a proper concept album. Peter, what about you?
You guys are gonna hate me, but crack.
Chocolate Starfish.
No,
Sorry?
no, Crack the Sky,
Oh,
masterpiece.
Crack the Sky. That I love the yeah.
Fucking yeah, I
No, it's a
fucking love that
beautiful
album.
song.
Yeah,
Beautiful album, but yeah.
yeah. I mean, the amount of time I've dedicated listening to that album
Mhm.
and then watching them live also kind of adds to it. Yeah, and it's a shame when I think about it, like now when you see them doing those videos and stuff like that in there. But I mean,
I mean, is
Animation.
it? No, I'm just. I think, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's a really strong album, and we've discussed it at length on the podcast too earlier. But again, more thematic rather than story driven. No,
Yeah,
in a way.
I mean, there is those things that there. I
Loose
mean, like,
threads. Yeah.
like couple of other ones which are not like that big, but like Protest the Hero had the album Kezia, which is again a story kind of through there, but not like very linear
Yeah.
in there.
The other one,
That's
of
there.
course, yeah. I mean, just to leave off the one really joyful one. That's if you really want positive vibes in your metal and in your concept albums, then the first Ziltoid album.
Yeah, of course. That of course. Bring me your coffee. But I mean, Animation, I've had this person as a guest on the podcast, and I think, yeah, we should actually get him to talk about this album, Edge of Sanity, Crimson. I actually managed to get, I should find this later after we're done recording, but I managed to get like an autographed CD from Dan Swanner. So
Nice.
that's fucking nice.
Amazing.
Very kind of like underground, and I think not a lot of people know, but like I'm a huge fan of the band Woods of Ypres, and their Woods 4 album was a concept album of sorts, very like story-led thing like that. I don't think I should talk more about it because it's like very personal of sorts to me. Off the recording, I can tell you more. But yeah, that album, I think I spent an entire year or sorts listening to. So yeah, I can't. I know that album, and it's so like associated with that stage of my life that I cannot listen to it anymore.
And I mean, just like bringing it all full circle, Crack the Sky was inspired by Abigail. I learned that later.
What?
Yeah.
Damn, I didn't know this.
Yeah. The drummer, I think, comes up with all the concepts, right? Like he said that he's a big fan.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, all of them are, even though like now they just like kind of act like they don't care. What metal? I mean, you were part of that discussion.
Yeah,
did you?
exactly. Oh well. That's the end of another episode. Time has come for us to say good night.
Yeah.
That was us talking about Abigail. What do you guys think about Abigail? Why don't you let us know? We are at honsapod.com or on Twitter at honsapod. As always, I'm on Twitter at Asmohani.
I'm at Trend Crusher.
I don't remember my ID.
You're at rdoor2000.
Yeah, thank you for telling me. Yeah.
You've not changed. You're that
Exactly.
easy.
He hasn't changed. And this was Horns Up.
Horns up, guys.
Horns up.